First contact and resistance. Admiral Zara Kincaid sipped her coffee as she scanned the morning briefing. 20 years in Global Defense Command, and most days still felt like routine drills. The massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains housed Earth's unified military command center, established after the nations of Earth had finally realized that petty squabbles meant nothing compared to what might lurk among the stars. Status report, she called, setting down her mug on the holographic table. All systems nominal, Admiral, replied Colonel Chen, her operations officer. Deep Space Monitoring Network is tracking the usual asteroid clusters. No anomalies to report. Kincaid nodded, brushing a strand of silver-streaked hair from her face. At 53, she'd spent half her life preparing for a day she secretly hoped would never come. The existence of alien life had been confirmed decades ago when the first probe signals were detected, but direct contact remained elusive. Earth had prepared anyway. Admiral, the voice came from Lieutenant Santiago at the sensor station. Multiple objects just appeared beyond Neptune's orbit. They're massive, sir. Kincaid moved swiftly to the station. Show me. The screen displayed thousands of objects appearing seemingly from nowhere, arranged in a precise formation that could only be artificial. There was no mistaking it. This was not natural. Initiate Protocol Lighthouse, she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. Around the command center, officers moved with practiced precision. No panic, no hesitation, just as they'd trained. Within minutes, the global alert had been issued. Across the planet, military units activated while civilian contingency plans smoothly engaged. 20 years of international preparation was paying off. Humanity moved as one. They're accelerating toward Earth, Admiral, reported Santiago. Estimated arrival in 16 hours at current velocity. Open all communication channels, ordered Kincaid. Standard first contact protocols. For 3 hours, Earth broadcast welcome messages in every known human language, mathematical sequences, and basic scientific principles. The universal languages. The response came as the fleet crossed Jupiter's orbit. The message appeared on every screen in the command center. A simple text transmission in perfect English. People of Earth, your planet is now property of the Keldari Dominion. Surrender your resources and submit to processing. Resistance will result in planetary sterilization. You have 6 hours to comply. Colonel Chen looked at Kincaid. Friendly bunch. Typical, Kincaid replied with a grim smile. They always assume technological superiority equals instant victory. She tapped her console. Activate scattered shield, and get me a direct line to these Keldari. The alien commander who appeared on the main view screen had blue-tinged skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and what seemed to be breathing apparatus covering the lower portion of his face. I am Grand Marshal Vexer of the Keldari Dominion. The alien stated without preamble. Your transmissions indicate you understand our terms. Admiral Zara Kincaid of Earth's Global Defense Command, she replied calmly. We understand your terms perfectly, Marshal Vexer. We simply reject them. The alien's upper eyes narrowed. Then you choose extinction. Our scans show your weapons are primitive. Your defenses inadequate. Surrender is your only logical option. Kincaid leaned forward slightly. You know, Marshal, humans have a saying. Don't judge a book by its cover. Your scans only show what we want them to show. Your metaphors are meaningless. Prepare for. Kincaid cut the transmission with a swipe of her hand. They'd never want to chat. She turned to her staff. Status of scattered shield. 8,000 orbital platforms activated. Admiral, responded Colonel Chen. Stealth systems functioning nominally. All orbital defense grids powered and awaiting your command. Across Earth, populations moved calmly into shelters that had been built and maintained for generations. Critical infrastructure shifted to independent power systems. Military units took up strategic positions designed to protect civilian centers while maintaining mobility. Earth had been preparing for this day since the first alien signals were detected. They had prepared without knowing what form the threat might take, building redundancies upon redundancies, developing technologies specifically to counter advanced spacefaring civilizations. The Caldari fleet entered Earth orbit precisely on schedule, deploying in a formation that indicated they expected minimal resistance. 5,000 ships positioned themselves over major population centers, while the remainder held in higher orbit as reserve. "They're initiating an electronic pulse," reported the tactical officer, "targeting our satellite network and power grids." Kincaid nodded. "As expected. Countermeasures. Functioning perfectly, Admiral. Our systems are shielded and the dummy networks are failing exactly as planned. They think they've knocked out our communications." The first wave of Caldari landing craft descended toward Earth's surface. Sleek, predatory vessels carrying troops and equipment for the occupation they believed would be swift and relatively bloodless. "Wait until they're committed," Kincaid ordered, watching the tactical display as thousands of alien craft entered the atmosphere. "Let them think it's going according to plan." When the order finally came, it was with a simple nod. "Scattered shield activated," announced Colonel Chen. What appeared to be debris and defunct satellites suddenly came to life. Thousands of stealth platforms, hidden in plain sight among the orbital junk that surrounded Earth, powered up simultaneously. Each platform housed weaponry specifically designed to counter advanced shielding technology, not by brute force, but by exploiting fundamental physical principles that even advanced civilizations couldn't circumvent. The first Caldari ships began exploding before they realized what was happening. Not by the hundreds, but by the thousands. "Message all commands," ordered Kincaid. "Phase 2 begins now." Across the planet, humanity's defense shifted from passive to active. Electromagnetic pulse weapons, developed from studying alien transmissions over decades, targeted the Caldari landing forces. Quantum disruption fields, created by Earth scientists through years of theoretical work, played havoc with the aliens' navigation systems. In the command center, Kincaid watched as the carefully orchestrated defense unfolded. The Caldari, expecting to face a primitive species armed with chemical rockets and basic electronics, instead encountered a civilization that had spent generations preparing specifically for this scenario. "They're regrouping, Admiral," reported Santiago, "changing formation and bringing up their secondary fleet." "Good," said Kincaid. "That means they're following the playbook. Activate the mesh network and prepare for Phase 3. As the Caldari communications attempted to coordinate their forces, they discovered something unexpected. Humans were already inside their network. Earth's best information warfare specialists had been studying potential alien communication systems for decades, developing theoretical methods to infiltrate and manipulate even technologies they had never directly encountered. False orders began spreading through the Caldari fleet. Ships fired on their allies. Retreat commands sent vessels into prepared ambushes. And throughout it all, Earth's forces maintained a defensive posture, focused on protecting population centers rather than pursuing offensive actions. 6 hours into the battle, the Caldari had lost over 2,000 ships. Their carefully planned invasion was in chaos, their command structure fractured, and they still hadn't deployed a single successful ground force. In the middle of the chaos, every Caldari ship suddenly received the same transmission: a human female in military uniform, standing calmly in what appeared to be a command center. "This is Admiral Zara Kincaid of Earth. You came to our home uninvited and demanded our surrender. You threatened our extinction if we refused. Now you understand the consequences of your arrogance. We will give you one opportunity to retreat. Any ship remaining in Earth orbit in 1 hour will be destroyed. There will be no second warning." The transmission ended, leaving the Caldari commanders in disarray. Their intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. The primitives weren't primitive at all. They were prepared, coordinated, and somehow possessed technology that could counter Caldari advances. Grand Marshal Vexor Watching his fleet dissolve into chaos from his command ship made the decision that would define his career. All vessels, maintain position. This is not a retreat. Deploy the sundering arrays. We will show these humans the true might of the Dominion. Across the remaining Keldari fleet, massive weapons platforms began to unfold, technology so advanced it had only been used twice in the Dominion's long history of conquest. The sundering arrays were designed to create localized distortions in planetary atmospheres, generating storms of unimaginable destructive force. As the arrays powered up, Earth's defense network detected the massive energy signatures. In the command center, Admiral Kincaid received the report with a grim expression. "So they're escalating to atmospheric weapons," she said quietly. "Remind me again why we thought first contact would be peaceful." Colonel Chen shrugged. "Optimism dies hard, Admiral. Activate Prometheus Protocol," ordered Kincaid, "and may whatever gods they believe in have mercy on them, because we won't." As the Keldari sundering arrays reached full power, preparing to unleash devastation on Earth's atmosphere, the planet's final defense activated. From hidden bases around the world, specially designed countermeasure systems locked onto the alien weapons. What happened next would be studied by Keldari military academics for generations, assuming any survived to return home. The Prometheus systems didn't target the Keldari ships directly. Instead, they created precisely calibrated energy fields that interacted with the sundering arrays themselves, causing a cascading feedback loop in the alien technology. The results were catastrophic for the invaders. 47 Keldari capital ships, each housing the sundering array, imploded as their own weapon systems collapsed in on themselves. The chain reaction spread through their formation, as power systems overloaded and reactor cores destabilized. By the end of the first day, over half the Keldari invasion force had been destroyed or disabled. Their remaining ships retreated to a defensive position around Earth's moon, attempting to regroup and reassess their fundamentally flawed understanding of human capabilities. In the GDC command center, Admiral Kincaid finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. The first phase had succeeded beyond expectations, but she knew the battle was far from over. The Keldari still had thousands of ships, and now they understood that they faced a genuine threat rather than an easy conquest. "Casualties?" she asked quietly. "Minimal, Admiral," replied Colonel Chen. "Our early warning systems gave us the time we needed. Civilian casualties under 5,000 globally. Military losses at acceptable levels." Kincaid nodded, her eyes still fixed on the tactical display, showing the remaining Keldari fleet regrouping around the moon. "They'll be back," she said. "And next time, they'll be fighting for revenge, not conquest. Prepare all commands for Phase 4. The real battle is just beginning." Turning the tide in aftermath. Grand Marshal Vexer stood on the bridge of his flagship, the imposing Dominion's will, now positioned in the shadow of Earth's moon. The blue-green planet hung in space before him, deceptively peaceful from this distance. His four eyes narrowed as he reviewed the battle statistics. 4,823 ships lost in less than a planetary rotation. Over 30 million Keldari warriors dead or unaccounted for. The greatest military disaster in the Dominion's 6,000-year history of interstellar conquest. "How?" he demanded, his voice a controlled rage. "How could our intelligence be so catastrophically wrong?" Science Director Meller approached cautiously. The thin, gray-skinned alien had been responsible for analyzing human technology prior to the invasion. "Marshal, we're still analyzing their defensive systems, but we've confirmed several disturbing findings," Meller said. "The humans have been systematically preparing for extraterrestrial contact for at least 70 of their years. They detected our observation probes decades ago and used the signals to develop countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize our technology." "Impossible," Vexer snapped. "Their civilization is barely unified. Our probes showed them still fighting among themselves less than a generation ago." "That appears to have been deliberate misdirection," Meller replied, his voice dropping. They maintain the appearance of division while secretly unifying their defense technologies and strategies. Their apparent conflicts masked collaborative military exercises and weapons development. Vexor turned to the tactical display, studying the remaining Keldari forces. Just over 5,000 ships, still a formidable armada by any standard, but no longer the overwhelming force they had arrived with. "Deploy the phase disruptors," he ordered finally. All of them. His second-in-command, Commander Trelax, looked up in shock. "All of them, Marshal. The Council authorized their use only as a last." "This is our last resort," Vexor cut him off. "Deploy them now. Target their major defense installations first, then population centers. We will break their resistance through overwhelming force." On Earth, Admiral Kincaid was already expecting the next phase of the battle. The defensive victory had been significant, but she harbored no illusions about the conflict being over. "They're deploying something big," reported Lieutenant Santiago, studying the sensor readings from the lunar orbit. "Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. Whatever they're preparing, it's orders of magnitude more powerful than their previous weapons." Kincaid nodded grimly. "Implementation status of Protocol Prometheus 2, 97% complete." "Admiral," Colonel Chen replied. "Dr. Okafor reports the final calibrations will be completed within the hour." "Tell her she has 20 minutes, Kincaid said, watching as the Keldari energy signatures grew stronger. "And get me a direct line to Director Hasegawa at Adaptive Systems." In a laboratory complex beneath Mount Fuji, Dr. Amara Okafor led a team of Earth's most brilliant scientists in the final preparations of humanity's most ambitious technological achievement. The circular chamber housed a device that represented the culmination of decades of theoretical work, a quantum interface system designed to exploit vulnerabilities in advanced energy manipulation technologies. 20 minutes, she repeated, hearing the urgency in Colonel Chen's voice. "We haven't completed the stability tests on the harmonic resonance fields." "Admiral's orders," Chen replied. "The Keldari are deploying their superweapons." Dr. Okafor looked at her team, then at the shimmering device before them. "No time for caution, then. Begin final implementation sequence. And someone get me more coffee. This is going to be close." Above the Earth, the Keldari phase disruptors began powering up. Massive weapons platforms unfolded from their carrier ships, extending arrays that glowed with ominous energy. The technology was among the most closely guarded secrets of the Dominion. Devices capable of altering the fundamental physical properties of matter within a targeted area, effectively disrupting the atomic bonds that held objects together. "Phase disruptors at 80% capacity," reported a Keldari weapons officer. "Targeting systems locked on human defense installations, ready to fire on your command, Marshal." Vexor nodded, his 4 eyes fixed on the viewscreen showing Earth. "Commence firing sequence." The first phase disruptor fired, sending a concentrated beam of energy toward Earth's surface. The target was the North American Defense Complex, the very facility where Admiral Kincaid directed Earth's forces. As the beam approached Earth's atmosphere, sensors throughout the defense network recorded its approach. "Incoming energy weapon," announced Santiago, her voice steady despite the imminent threat. "Impact in 15 seconds." Kincaid remained calm, watching the countdown. "Activate adaptive shield. Grid 7. In orbit above North America, a previously dormant satellite cluster suddenly activated. Unlike the conventional defensive platforms that had engaged the Keldari ships earlier, these devices were based on technology reverse-engineered from fragments of alien probes recovered over decades. As the phase disruptor beam struck the shield, something unexpected happened. Instead of penetrating or even being deflected, the energy seemed to be absorbed, channeled, and redirected. The shield glowed brilliantly for several seconds before projecting the energy back toward the moon, not as a weapon, but as a diffuse wave that washed over the Keldari fleet. On the bridge of the Dominion's will, alarms blared as systems began failing across the ship. "What's happening?" demanded Vexor, watching as consoles short-circuited around him. "They've reflected the phase disruptor energy somehow," Science Director Mellor replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "But they've modulated it to target our command systems specifically. It's as if they understood the technology and developed a countermeasure in advance." Across the Keldari fleet, ships began experiencing cascading system failures. The phase disruptors, still deployed and charging, became unstable as their control systems malfunctioned. "Shut down the disruptors," ordered Vexor. "All of them. Now." But the order came too late. 7 phase disruptors overloaded simultaneously, the resulting explosions destroying not only the weapons themselves, but also the ships that carried them. The chain reaction spread through the closely packed fleet, each detonation triggering sympathetic failures in nearby vessels. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Kincaid watched the tactical display as hundreds of Keldari ships were consumed by their own weapon systems. "Dr. Okafor's team deserves medals," she commented. "The quantum interface worked exactly as theorized." "They're regrouping," reported Colonel Chen. "Remaining ships are forming a defensive sphere, approximately 2,000 vessels still combat-capable." Kincaid nodded. "They're adaptable. I'll give them that. Time to show them our final card. Activate Protocol Tartarus." On the far side of the moon, hidden from both Earth and the Keldari fleet, something stirred. In the shadows of craters and beneath the lunar surface, launch bays opened. What emerged were not conventional spacecraft, but something unique to human ingenuity. Hybrid vessels combining Earth technology with elements reverse-engineered from decades of studying alien signals and recovered probe fragments. Each ship was piloted not by a human crew but by a quantum neural network, artificial intelligences specifically designed for space combat, operating in perfect coordination with each other and with Earth's defense grid. The lunar defense fleet powered up and moved into position, 1,000 vessels strong. They had been humanity's ace in the hole, the final defense if all else failed. Now they would serve as the spearhead for humanity's counterattack. "Marshal," Commander Trullax's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "We're detecting multiple launches from the lunar surface. 1,000. No more. Spacecraft approaching from the dark side of their moon." Vexor stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "Impossible. Our scans showed no significant lunar presence. These ships..." Science Director Mellor studied the incoming data with growing horror. "They incorporate elements of our own technology. Somehow they've managed to replicate aspects of our propulsion and weapon systems." As the lunar fleet engaged the Keldari Armada, the difference in combat philosophy became immediately apparent. The human vessels didn't fight like conventional military forces. They operated with machine precision but human creativity, employing tactics that seemed to border on the chaotic yet revealed an underlying strategic brilliance. Where Keldari doctrine relied on overwhelming force applied according to centuries-old tactical formulas, the human ships adapted in real time, each engagement informing the next in a constant evolutionary process. "Their ships are learning," Mellor whispered, watching the battle unfold. "They're analyzing our responses and modifying their tactics accordingly." The Keldari fleet, already devastated by the phase disruptor disaster, now found itself fighting an enemy that could predict and counter their every move. Ship after ship fell to the coordinated assault of Earth's lunar fleet. Aboard the Dominion's Will, Grand Marshal Vexor made the hardest decision of his career. "Signal all remaining vessels," he ordered, his voice hollow. "Full retreat. Maximum velocity away from this system." Commander Trullax stared in disbelief. "Marshal, the Council will view this as..." "The Council isn't here," Vexor cut him off. "I am, and I will not sacrifice what remains of our fleet in a battle we cannot win. Signal the retreat. Now." As the surviving Keldari ships broke formation and accelerated away from Earth, Admiral Kincaid watched from her command center with mixed emotions. Victory had been achieved, but at a cost. Though civilian casualties had been minimized, thousands of defense personnel had lost their lives. Infrastructure damage would take years to repair fully. "Should we pursue, Admiral?" asked Colonel Chen. "The lunar fleet could probably catch the slower vessels." Kincaid shook her head. "No, let them go. Let them take the message back to their dominion." She turned to the communications officer. "Broadcast on all frequencies they might be monitoring. Text only." She dictated the message herself. "This is Admiral Zara Kincaid of Earth. You came as conquerors. You leave as witnesses. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a prize to be claimed or a resource to be exploited. Tell them that humanity stands ready to meet any species in peace or in war as they choose. The decision is theirs. This is our first and final warning." 17 days later, the remnants of the once mighty Caldari invasion fleet limped back to Dominion space. Out of 9,900 ships that had departed on what was supposed to be a routine conquest, only 17 returned, damaged, undermanned, and carrying a message that would shake the foundations of the Dominion's expansionist policies. Grand Marshal Vexer stood before the High Council, his career and possibly his life forfeit, but determined to deliver the truth. "Esteemed counselors," he began, "I come before you to report the complete failure of the Earth acquisition operation and to submit myself for judgment. But before you render your verdict, you must understand what we encountered there. The intelligence we received was not merely incomplete, it was catastrophically wrong." As he detailed the battle and its aftermath, the council chamber grew increasingly silent. "These humans," said the eldest counselor finally, "you believe they could pose a threat to the Dominion itself?" "No, honored one," Vexer replied. "I believe they already do. They were prepared for us. Not just militarily, but psychologically and strategically. They had studied us for decades without our knowledge. They had countermeasures for technologies they should never have encountered before. And most disturbing of all, they showed restraint." "Restraint?" questioned another counselor. "They could have pursued and destroyed our retreating vessels," Vexer explained. "They chose not to. They could have launched a counterattack against our nearest colonies. Their lunar fleet demonstrated they have that capability. Again, they chose not to. Instead, they sent a message." He paused. "A warning." The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. "What would you advise, Marshal?" asked the council leader finally. Vexer straightened, knowing his next words might well determine the future of the Dominion itself. "I advise that we heed their warning, that we classify the Sol system as prohibited space and turn our expansion efforts elsewhere, and most importantly, that we reevaluate our entire approach to first contact and conquest. If there is one species like humanity out there, there may be others." On Earth, Admiral Kincaid stood at the window of her office, looking out at the rebuilding efforts. The Caldari invasion had changed humanity forever. Already, scientists were incorporating the salvaged alien technology into new defensive systems. The lunar fleet was being expanded, and perhaps most importantly, the nations of Earth continued to stand united. "Admiral," Colonel Chen entered, carrying a data tablet. "The Council has approved the expansion of the Global Defense Command. You've been promoted to Supreme Commander." Kincaid accepted the tablet without enthusiasm. "And the Harbinger program?" "Approved as well. Deep space monitoring stations are being established throughout the solar system. If anyone comes looking for us again, we'll have much more advance warning." Kincaid nodded, returning her gaze to the window. "They'll be back, you know. Maybe not the Caldari, but someone. The universe just got a lot smaller for us, and I doubt everyone out there will be impressed by our victory." "We'll be ready," Chen assured her. "Yes," Kincaid agreed, watching as a formation of fighters incorporating alien technology streaked across the sky. "Next time, we will be even more ready. And may whatever gods exist have mercy on anyone who fails to heed our warning." In the depths of space, the 17 surviving Caldari ships continued their journey home, carrying with them a message that would reshape their civilization's understanding of its place in the galaxy. Earth had not merely defended itself, It had announced its presence to the stars in a way that could not be ignored. Humanity, having faced its first interstellar threat, turned its collective gaze outward with new purpose. They had survived this encounter, but the stars suddenly seemed much less welcoming than before. The time of innocence was over. The age of preparation had begun. And in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, a new plaque was installed beside the main tactical display. It contained just 7 words, the unofficial motto adopted by the Global Defense Command in the aftermath of the invasion. They came with 9,900. Only 17 returned.